so much, Laurel. This is great. I'm having a wonderful time. I'll start right in because I know that we've been here a while and I don't want you to fall asleep or anything, not that you would. I've been hearing subject matter that is wonderful. I've been hearing subject matter about light. I've been hearing subject matter about desire, and I've been hearing subject matter about rejection. And I thought that I would start with a poem that I haven't really, I don't think, read anywhere, about the weather. And just get it over with. And it's called Can't Keep Warm Anyway. This is a poem that I wrote in something like November, and I was talking about the onset of winter, but it still applies. I mean, I know today was sunny, but it doesn't count because it's not sunny anymore. Okay, so maybe I'll just live outside next winter, feel my way along the roots of a tall jack pine, find a soft spot on the splintered, mold-stained tarpaulin of fall. I'll rearrange those few pathetic seeds still wrinkling side by side in blackened pods, then listen to the skeletons of weeds clacking their indignation to the gods. I'll figure out what happened to the primrose that's neither prim nor rose these days, but dried and splitting, leaking seeds on purpose so wind and birds can take them for a ride. I'll note the way the cone flowers have found a whole new way to bloom, using their heads for trapping flakes before they hit the ground and wearing them like nightcaps in their beds. You'll find me with my coat around my torso contemplating sparrows, dull, brown, and shivering like me, but even more so until the puny little sun goes down. Enough of Wisconsin weather. Okay, I do get most of my, or a lot, not most, but a lot of my inspiration from poems from students in one way or another. And I wrote actually a villanelle. I do like to write in forms. I love to write in forms. It gives me, I like to dance in a box. That's what I've been told. It's not my original expression, but I really enjoy having those parameters. I do better in those. I know this. My free verse isn't very good. But my formal poetry is a lot better. So anyway, this is a villanelle, and it's called Subject to Change, and it's a reflection on my students. They are so beautiful and so very young, they seem almost to glitter with perfection, these creatures that I briefly move among. I never get to stay with them for long, but even so, I view them with affection. They are so beautiful and so very young. Poised or clumsy, placid or high-strung, they're expert in the art of introspection, these creatures that I briefly move among. And if their words don't quite trip off the tongue consistently, with just the right inflection, they remain beautiful and very young. Still, I have to tell myself it's wrong to think of them as anything but fiction, these creatures that I briefly move among, because, like me, they're traveling headlong in that familiar vertical direction that coarsens beautiful, blackmails young, and turns to phantoms those I move among. I had a very good student one of the last couple of years that I was teaching. I don't teach at UWM anymore. I teach around the state doing week-long workshops here and there, Door County and places like that. But I loved the college-age students for a while. This was actually inspired by one of those students. She was a good poet and a good young student, and she would turn her poems in regularly. And she left a note on my desk one day, and it said, "Dear Professor Taylor, sorry my poem is late. I'll be turning it in tomorrow if it's any constellation." So I thought, now there's a poem waiting to be written. So I wrote a sonnet. And I showed it to her, and she was not offended. So it was okay. Any constellation. About that poem, will light come out of it? And will it blaze like Ariadne's crown with phosphorescent daggers hanging down? Will galaxies recede to make it fit? I think I'll go outside tonight and stare straight up so we can find the perfect place for it. Some pleasant cul-de-sac in space with curve appeal. Adjacent to the bear, perhaps, or tucked under the outspread wings of Pegasus, who might suspend his flight so he can skim over your poem tonight, along with scores of goddesses and kings, those starry listeners, silent and remote, wheeling to the pulse of what you wrote. I've also noticed with young students, especially somehow female students, who don't speak in declarative sentences. They speak in questions. And so I wrote a poem. It's called Always Questions, and it's got a little epigraph, and it says overheard at Hardee's, but I really made it up. Yesterday at the mall, I bought a book of Emily Dickinson for my mom. And actually, I wrote this poem with an Emily Dickinson poem in mind. I'll just read the first couple of stanzas of Dickinson's poem. You probably recognize it. I started early, took my dog, and visited the sea. The mermaids in the basement came out to look at me, and frigates in the upper floor extended hempen hands, presuming me to be a mouse aground upon the sands. I mean, that's the sort of thing I really wish I'd written, but it's Emily's, but that's the poem that I refer to in this poem that I wrote. There is a moment in the middle teens when virtually every sentence ends on an upward curl, as if it really means to be a question, or at least pretends to entertain an element of doubt. Like this: I started early, took my dog, implying that I may have ventured out exceptionally late to take a jog without the dog or anyone else along. And if I add, and visited the sea, I'm hinting that of course I could be wrong about this sea thing, you know me. It's evidently hard for them to say the thing they mean without a little cue for feedback. The understood, okay. Or possibly they talk the way they do because they are the representatives of a long out-of-date civility. These gentle souls who speak in tentatives and always dwell in possibility. Not all poems about young people are particularly upbeat. This is called In Other News, and it's also a sonnet. They called the circumstances drug-related when they found her face up, open-eyed, bloody, but fully clothed. Witnesses said the murdered girl had not been violated, and you could call that lucky. Her first stroke of luck since the convulsive day she fled from the cold kitchen where her mother spread her fury every morning, black and thick for breakfast, making the corrupted air unfit to breathe, forcing her out the door. I'll kill the little bitch, her mother swore, when she comes crawling back from God knows where. A comment the police chose to ignore because it hardly mattered anymore. We don't handle death and dying too well in this culture. And I wrote a poem with that in mind called At the End. In another time, a linen winding sheet would already have been drawn about her. The funeral drums by now would have throbbed their dull tattoo into the shadows writhing behind the fire's eye, while a likeness of her narrow torso, carved and studded with obsidian, might have been passed from hand to hand and rubbed against the bellies of women with child, and a twist of her gray hair been dipped in oil and set alight, releasing the essence of her life's elixir, pricking the nostrils of her children and her children's children, whose amber faces nod and shine like a ring of lanterns strung around her final flare. But instead, she lives in this white room, gnawing on a plastic bracelet as she is emptied, filled, and emptied. So I will lighten up. I discovered, that's a bad word for me to use right now. I found in Discover magazine, the following epigraph that sent me straight to my laptop. It read as follows: due to predicted overcrowding in our cemeteries, a new service is available which will see to packing and storing one's remains in a space capsule for eventual launching into Earth's orbit. Have you ever heard of that? I guess Timothy Leary did that or wants to do that or something like that. I don't know, but I guess it was true. It was in Discover magazine. Isn't everything true in Discover magazine? So I thought, okay, I used to be in the advertising business before I went back to grad school, and I thought, what if I were assigned that account, for that funeral parlor, and I had to write their brochure? And I thought, okay, I'm going to do that as my poem, and it's called Notice from the Sweet Chariot Funeral Parlor. Dear friend, we are operating at capacity and cannot supply a green and grassy spot for your tomb, as there is no more room. Instead, you are invited to entrust your dust to our space-age morticians who seal in stainless steel, thanks to post-Newtonian science, our clients. Whereupon you, and all your shiny loved ones too, shall ascend via chartered rocket ship to spend eternity very near where heaven used to be. I will close, more or less. It's not immediate, but I warn you, with a crown of sonnets. I think you probably know what a crown of sonnets is. It's 7 sonnets that are linked. The last line of the first one becomes the first line of the next one, and the last line of the very last one becomes an identical line with the first line of the very first poem. So if you follow that, it forms a circle or a crown-shaped thing. And I got the idea because of the expression that we refer to as the liberal arts. And I thought, why liberal arts? Why was this? Where did this name come about? How did it come about? And it stems, as you may very well know, from the classic tradition. According to Plato and Aristotle, the liberal arts, I'm reading here, are the subject suitable, they thought in ancient Greece and Rome, are the subject suitable for the development of intellectual and moral excellence as distinguished from those merely useful and practical. And I thought, yeah. You can't get a job with a liberal arts major. Maybe you can. I don't know. But I used the 7 liberal arts from the classical era to sort of frame or put a grid on this crown of sonnets, and I go through them one by one. The first one is sort of introductory, and then I take them one by one, and after the 7th one, you'll be done. Logic. A moment's peace from you, old earth, enough's enough. Your gorgeousness is still in season, still clobbering philosophy and reason in one delicious blow. Show me your stuff and dump the liberal arts, that old flim-flammery that goes like this, my drop-dead parlor trick. Logic, grammar, music, rhetoric, geology, arithmetic, astronomy. They're very easy to recite, but hard as hell to live with. Ever try to dance with logic? To unzip its crotchety pants, get sexy deconstructing Kierkegaard? Unpromising, like bathing with a cat. And no one needs to write a book on that. Grammar. My dear professor, write a book on me. Devote a chapter to my graceful lines and how my every syllable defines the dips and rises of my prosody. Come, scan me carefully, and when you're through, deal with my feet. Iambic and trochaic. Pronounce them perfect if a touch archaic, then taste the syllables in my haiku. Scribble suggestions slowly down my spine with your intense exploratory care, and punctuate with sharp intakes of air the way my staves and strophes intertwine, and then, professor, sign me fore and aft as if I were a promising first draft. It gets worse. Music. If I can promise you a frosty draft of Bud Light when we get there, can we go to Nashville, Kansas City, Branson, Moe? I'm craving country music, that whole raft of anthems from the boys who do it best, star-twangled banners from the girls who strayed and lied and loved and finally got laid by some hot cowpoke in a leather vest. Been thinking off and on of Toby Keith, the way his fingers pluck that blue guitar. I dream up dirty movies, he's the star, on how those fingers feel from underneath. But never mind, it's high time we departed. Get in the car, shut up, don't get me started. Rhetoric. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, okay? You're not my lucky star, you are a damn black hole. I do not love you, Sam I am. Get lost, scram, beat it, go away. Clear out your retrosexual groceries, that loaf of bread, the jug of wine, right now. And as for your adoring little thou, just watch her kick you in the fantasies. I get the sense that you're painfully aware that you're a sorry ass, the big dumpy. How sad. Let me extend my sympathy by offering you a simple little prayer. May your next cocktail be a Molotov, and everything that you hold dear fall off. Geology. Hold it, hold everything. I'm falling off the edge. There goes my equilibrium, so long. You're dangerous enough to cause a tremor, a gigantic lurch, a 9 on my internal Richter scale. You pulse with something seismically male, and I'm no safer on my little perch than a shack along the San Andreas. How can I ever rise above the rubble of what you've done to me? Stay out of trouble when aftershocks will certainly betray us. A tougher question than I bargained for. Remember, I am molten at the core. Arithmetic. It melts the very core of me to listen to the cheerful clink and jingle in your deep pockets. I begin to tingle when you declare that I'm your chickadee and you're my guaranteed annuity, my piggy bank, my Google IPO. And should you strike out in a year or so, I could become your 501c3. A little bit of Warren Buffettry is all it took, a little real estate, a tiny merger to emancipate those lovely megabucks. I do agree the time has clearly come for you to lay your Freddie Mac against my Fannie Mae. And finally, astronomy. Frederick Chopin, Fanny Mendelssohn, Claude Debussy, when you woke up at night, synapses snapping wildly, did you write your nocturnes then? And was the woozy moon spreading its silver fingers over yours, convincing you to give in to your will, your high romantic fantasies until the swollen stars were winking like voyeurs? How intimate were you with the coiled wires underneath the piano's lid as note by note you wove a lovely antidote for our enormous orbiting desires? Did you suspect how much it would be worth to bring one moment's peace to this old earth? Thank you very much. I want to just mention that all of those first-person dramatic monologues have nothing to do with yours truly. I is not, I. Just so you're aware of that.
The beauty of persona.
Yeah, right, you bet.
Thank
with murder.
Thank you, Marilyn, so much. And thank you to Jenny. And thank you to Christine. And thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. Please thank Ron by buying a book, because he's fantastic, as anybody who's been in this bookstore knows. And please come and take advantage of these books up for sale as well, if you wish. They're, as you've heard tonight, filled with some pretty great stuff. So we hope we see you May 6th, and thanks again.